Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all 11 rides at Universal Studios' new theme park, Epic Universe. Now, I had the opportunity to go here during their preview period back in April, so I got to visit the park before it was actually open to the public and everything. But in my experience, I got to spend the entire day there, and I rode all 11 rides, as well as doing both shows, which I'm not going to include in this particular ranking. This is strictly just going to be the rides. But I really enjoyed the park, had a great time. I look forward to checking it out now that it's fully open and everything. So yeah, let's get into these rankings, and at the end, if you want to let me know what you would rank the rides as well, be sure to drop that in the comments. Starting out at number 11, I have Yoshi's Adventure, which is a ride, let's say that's not bad by any means. You know, it's a kid ride, it's a little slow moving people mover in the Super Nintendo world, and it's, you know, it's decent. It gives you a nice look and lay of the land and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it moves like 2 miles an hour. The seats are pretty cramped with the lap bar for a ride that really doesn't go fast or, you know, move around that much. So it's interesting that they have such a tight lap bar on that ride. And the other downside too is you're out in the sun, in the hot Florida sun. So better put on the sunscreen because you're probably going to get baked riding this ride. So that's mostly why I have it at the bottom of my list. Now, moving on to number 10, I have the Constellation Carousel, which is actually a pretty unique carousel. The way it's set up and the design of it and everything looks really cool. Getting to see this at night is amazing. The light, you know, sequences and everything, and the music they have playing is all really nice. But at the end of the day, it is just a carousel. So even though it is more unique and probably the most unique one I've ever been on, I can't really put it higher than number 10, unfortunately. Moving on to number 9, I have Dragon Racers Rally over in the How to Train Your Dragon portal. This was probably one of the more disappointing rides for me. Not that I thought it was going to be, you know, all that great, because it is just a basic flat ride that gives you the illusion like you're flying on one of the dragons. And that's cool and everything, but at least in my experience, it was very short. And you know, you're supposed to be able to move your seat to where you can actually like flip upside down and everything. But by the time you kind of figure out how to get it going, the ride's over. You only get maybe 4 to 5 rotations with it. And it is, you know, you get a nice breeze and you do go up pretty high and everything like that. So it is kind of cool. Maybe for younger kids, it might be fine. But honestly, if you're waiting in line more than maybe 20 minutes for this, it's definitely not worth it. So it was a bit of a disappointment for me, but it does help fill out the rest of the land and add another ride to it. Now at number 8, might be a somewhat controversial pick, but I have Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, one of the few dark rides that's at the park. This one was another one that was just a big disappointment for me. When I think of a Mario Kart ride, I'm not thinking of a slow moving dark ride where, you know, you don't do a whole lot really. Plus you add in the whole VR experience where you're playing the game and stuff, which I'm sure is fun for some people, but for me, it just didn't really add anything to the ride. In all honesty, the ride is almost better if you take off the visor and just watch all of the stuff going on outside of that, because a lot of the set pieces in the ride are actually not that bad to look at on their own. It's when you add in that other element where everything just kind of gets all muddled. And honestly, the game, it's not the easiest thing to play. It's not all that confusing either, but it's really not that fun, if I'm being perfectly honest. The best thing I can say about this ride is the queue. I think the queue is actually really great. It's one of the best looking ones in the park. So from my understanding, this ride usually has pretty long wait times. So at least while you're waiting, you'll have some nice stuff to look at. But once you get on the ride, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. Unless you're a kid, kids will probably really enjoy it. But for anybody older than, let's say, 15, you're probably not going to like it too much. At number 7, I have another one that might be, you know, a little bit of a higher choice than some, but I have Fire Drill, which is also in the How to Train Your Dragon portal as well. And this was a pretty fun ride, I thought. It's the only water ride in the entire park, but it's pretty cool. Like, you go around, you shoot the targets, you can shoot other boats with your water cannons, and basically you just get soaked. So on a hot summer day in Florida, this is the perfect ride to jump on just to get out of the sun. Well, you'll still be in the sun, but at least you'll be cooled off with some water here and there, which is nice. And when I rode it, there wasn't really too many other people on other boats, so I didn't really get to see any of the combat you could do with some of them. But I'm sure you could make a pretty fun game out of trying to shoot other people. So yeah, that's why it ranks a little bit higher than most people probably, because I had a pretty good time with it, and I think most people, especially kids, are going to have a good time with this one as well. At number 6, I have Minecart Madness, also in the Super Nintendo world, over in Donkey Kong Country. This is the lowest roller coaster I have on the list. And not to say that it's bad by any means, I actually really enjoy the ride. It's just not my favorite out of the 4 coasters at the park. It's a little jankier than the other ones, and that's kind of the point of the ride too, because the ride layout is actually really fun because it's set up like in the Donkey Kong games where you have tracks that are broken and it's supposed to give you the illusion like you're jumping from track to track, and all that's great, but because of the system and everything for the ride, it doesn't make it the smoothest overall. So there's a few issues there. It's also a little on the shorter side. If it had been a tad bit longer, it would have maybe, made up for some of the things that are a little lackluster with it. But overall, it's still a pretty fun ride. It's just definitely not worth what I've seen most people are having to wait for this thing. Now, coming in at number 5, I have a ride that a lot of people are probably going to put much lower on the list, but I have Curse of the Werewolf, which is in the Dark Universe portal. And this ride, I think, gets a lot of hate. It is a ride that was kind of tacked on after the fact. There was supposed to be another ride in the Dark Universe portal, and then I guess something happened where they couldn't do that one, and they ended up putting in this kind of makeshift roller coaster. But I actually like a lot of the elements to the ride. The theming is pretty nice. There are a couple of, I guess not animatronics, but like mannequins on the ride, which if they had made full-fledged animatronics, I think they would work a little bit better. But the ride kind of blows past a lot of that stuff to where you can't really notice it anyway. Like there's supposed to be a big werewolf in the shed that you go through. But I didn't notice it because the ride actually goes pretty fast through there, and by the time you go through it, you don't really have time to look at it. It is a spinning roller coaster, which is pretty fun. So if you get the weight distribution just right, you'll be spinning pretty consistently on there, which the 2 times I rode it, I got to spin pretty good on it, and I think that adds another element to it. It also has a swing launch that is pretty cool. So not only does it launch you into the ride itself, but at one point you get launched, don't quite make it, go backwards for a bit, and then you get launched again, and then you get to go through the rest of the ride, which is a pretty cool element. The only big downside here for the ride is that it's very short. This one feels even shorter than Minecart Madness, and had they tacked on just a little bit more to the ride, I think that would help it a lot. But unfortunately, that's its biggest downfall. It's just the length is not what it needs to be. All right, the top 4, I would say all these rides are great to amazing. And coming in at number 4, I have Hiccup's Wing Gliders over in the How to Train Your Dragon portal. This is a really fun family coaster. It really took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting much out of it. I was expecting something more than like a Flight of the Hippogriff or like a troller coaster type thing. But this one really moves well. It's super smooth. I love the animatronics and the story that the ride actually does on the ride, but all the theming and everything's great. Getting to go through a lot of the land of Berk and the How to Train Your Dragon area is really cool to look at and see. So this one is quite a surprise just for it not really having a whole lot of like intense elements to it. Just the smoothness of the ride and everything added into it just makes for a really fun ride, and it's a great coaster that your kids and adults are really going to enjoy. Now, coming in at number 3 is the best roller coaster in the park, and arguably the second best roller coaster in all of Universal Orlando. I'm talking about Stardust Racers, which I know recently has run into a little bit of controversy, but I'm not going to touch on that in the ranking. This ride is awesome. To me, it takes the elements of Velocicoaster as far as being a launch coaster with some really high elements and great airtime, but also adds in some dueling effects like Dueling Dragons that used to be at Islands of Adventure. So it's the intensity of Velocicoaster mixed with the awesome racing aspect of Dueling Dragons, and I think that's an awesome combination to have. Doing that with this ride makes it just even better, but I would assume even if you rode it by itself without racing the other train, it would still be a lot of fun in its own right. You have the green and the yellow side. I personally like the yellow side a little bit more. I think you get more airtime on it, but I've heard that people prefer the green side because it's a little bit more intense. So it's kind of just a personal preference, but for me, I would rank the yellow just a tad bit higher than the green, but no matter what, you're gonna get a good ride on this regardless. All right, now coming in at number 2, I have Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry. This ride, there's a lot of hype and stuff going on around it. It is a ride that unfortunately does seem to have some issues and break down quite often. But if you get a solid ride on this, which I did the only time I rode it, I thankfully didn't have to wait super long, but I did have to wait a little bit. This ride is pretty amazing. To me, it's the best Harry Potter dark ride that exists at any of the Universal parks in Orlando. To me, it's really smooth. I love all the animatronics. I love the use of animatronics versus screens. It's a good mixture. There's points in the ride where you don't know what's a screen and what's an animatronic. There's also some animatronics that I had to stop and look at again because I thought they were actors, not actually animatronics. That's how good their movements and everything were. And I really like the story of this ride too. Add in an amazing queue that is arguably the best queue of any Harry Potter ride in existence because it looks exactly like the Ministry of Magic from the movies, and you have yourself a world-class attraction here. And coming in at number 1 is my personal favorite. It was the one I was most hyped for going into the park. It's Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein Experiment. This ride takes the ride system from Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, but makes it even better. Because on that ride, it's good, but this ride does an amazing job of moving the ride system itself. The seats that you're in feel a lot more comfortable to me. It seems like it moves at a smoother pace. You also have great animatronics mixed in with screens, yes, but it doesn't give you the same feeling that Forbidden Journey does. I've heard a lot of people say they had issues with getting motion sickness on that ride. I don't get motion sickness, so I can't really, say one way or the other, but I do think Monsters Unchained is a much smoother experience overall, and to me, that just makes it an overall better ride. It's probably one of the, if not the greatest dark ride I've ever been on. Having all the, Universal monsters packed into one ride, Frankenstein, Creature of the Black Lagoon, Wolfman, the Mummy, all kinds of cool characters and animatronics. You don't know what's going to come at you next. It's really set up amazingly. The queue for this ride is insane as well. Everything leading up just gets you more and more hyped for the ride. And then the outside exterior of the building and everything looks awesome. It's this big mansion with like lightning in certain parts of the windows and stuff like that. It's so cool to look at. And it is easily the ride I think is the best attraction at Epic Universe. So that's it, guys. All 11 rides ranked from worst to best. Let me know what you think of my list. Let me know what you think are the correct rankings. If you have different rankings, let me know what rides you think are better, which rides do you think are worse. Let me hear it. I'd love to see what you guys think. But that's about it for me, guys. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more rankings and more videos coming out in the near future. I'll leave all my links down below on where you can follow me on social media. And until next time, I'll catch you all later.